Okay, let's continue. Okay, so when we did come up with that schedule, there was one thing that I definitely knew we need to have again, and that's Manuel's talk about studying at Code and everything that he says in that talk, because I think it's one of the most influential talks that I've.
Yeah, I want to talk about not the details of our learning concept. I'm sure you've read a lot about this, try to understand what it is that Code's all about and what it would feel like to study at Code. As Selma said, I'm going to talk a little bit about the bigger picture of why we're doing all this and what might be helpful for you to consider and think about now that you are entering or starting your learning journey at Code. Thank you. Was that me or was that you?
Me, but now you're
good. Okay. So, talking about education, the real value of a real education. Anyone knows they're Greek, ancient Greek? Anyone? Well, okay. Latin, anyone? Could you translate? No? Okay. So it's this one is actually said to have been inscribed on the entry of the Apollo temple of Apollo in Delphi, and it's the Greek version of saying "Know thyself, know yourself," and that's the Latin translation. There's a lot to say about this. I like this one a little bit more. It's basically the same thing. The first principle is that you must not fool yourself, and you are the easiest person to fool. That's a quote by Richard Feynman. And if you haven't, please go and read Surely You're Joking, Mr. Feynman. It's an amazing book about a person that is, he's the perfect example of a curious mind. Someone who really is eager to learn and is curious about everything. It's about, just go and read it. It's a lot of fun. But this quote is very important because it is absolutely true. We are fooling ourselves all the time. And it's really, really important that we challenge ourselves not to do that. And know yourself is, in a way, saying, or challenging, asking yourself, why am I doing what I'm doing? And that's referring to what I talked about yesterday briefly, the question over and over again, why are you here? What is it that you're trying to accomplish? I want to give you a perspective on that from our side, and just remind you again of how important I think it is that you think about this for yourself. So we know that you are here for a reason. And the reason is you've decided to apply for Code. We've decided that it would be a great idea to have you here. But that's, of course, not all of the story. We also see in you potential. We see in you the potential to become what we like to call a digital pioneer. And a digital pioneer, I mean, sounds great. It's digital pioneering. It's like discovering new things and new lands and exploring the world. I want to talk about what we mean by digital pioneer and what we think is important when it comes to becoming a digital pioneer. So we what are the key characteristics? What is it that we think you should have developed in terms of characteristics by the end of your studies? And it might come as a surprise or it might not. This has nothing to do with knowledge or professional skills as they are taught in the 3 study programs. This is above and beyond everything you will be learning to become a great interaction designer, product manager, or software engineer. And some of it may sound like, well, this is just a human characteristic, but what we try to describe is what we think is necessary for you to be prepared for a future that is hard to predict. Because usually that's what educators do. If you create a new study program, you ask yourself, and usually you gather a bunch of experts, and you ask them, what is it that people need to learn today in order to be successful in this specific job tomorrow? And this requires you to predict what this job will look like tomorrow and what the world will look like for this job tomorrow. And I think that's exactly where most of it goes wrong, because we don't know. It is, some argue it's especially hard today, but it was always hard to predict the future. And in times where people talk about jobs disappearing and jobs changing and being replaced by algorithms and robots and whatever, it's even harder than it might have been a couple of decades ago. So if that is not the goal, if that is not a valid approach, what is? How do we make sure you're still prepared for a future that we cannot predict? And that brings us back to this question of what does a digital pioneer need? And not just need to survive in this future. I mean, we all want to survive and get along somehow, but we want to aim higher. We want you to have what it takes to make a difference, to shape this future, the future society we're all going to live in. Not just survive and get along, but really have an influence, co-create and co-design. And yeah, that's how we came up with that. The list of things that we need, that we think you need in order to be able to do that. And the first thing is genuine curiosity. Again, coming back to Richard Feynman, he's a perfect example for that. Curiosity, of course, we are curious about things all the time, but genuine curiosity means that you really want to understand, that you're really, really interested in a thing or a person, the person you're just talking to. Being curious about them means that you really want to understand what drives them, where do they come from, what are they concerned about, and understanding things, being curious about things means that you want to dig, that you really want to dig deep and understand what it is that makes the world go round. So genuine curiosity doesn't stop on a superficial level. It really tries to understand how things are connected and how the world works. And it helps you. It helps you because once you develop this habit of being curious about things, curiosity somehow feeds itself. Things become more interesting if you start looking into them. If you're really, authentically, genuinely curious about them. So it helps you to learn, it helps you to keep up with developments, it helps you understand the people you're working with, the people in your personal life. This is one of the key characteristics for us of a digital pioneer. The other thing is a growth mindset. You may have heard that about it. It's, again, a great book to read, Mindset by Carol Dweck. And it basically describes a person that is not intimidated by challenges, but rather sees challenges as a chance to learn and grow, and challenges and failures. In the book, they're describing very interesting examples, experiments they did with children, where they presented children with a jigsaw puzzle, and once they did the puzzle, they asked the children, do you want to do another one that is equally hard, or do you want to do a harder one? And they said there were two groups of children. Some of them said, I don't want a harder one. I know that I can do this one, so I want to do a similar one. And there were other children that said, why should I do the same one? I already know that I can do this. I need the next challenge. And the fixed mindset approach would be to say, let's not risk failure by trying something that's harder. Stick to the things that I know I can do. And the growth mindset approach would be to say, give me another challenge. I already managed to complete this one, so I want to grow. I want to be challenged. I want to see if I can do the next thing. So growth mindset is seeking challenges and seeing challenges as a chance to grow, and not being intimidated by the risk of failure, and also not seeing failure as a personal failure, but as something that happens, that needs to happen if you challenge yourself constantly. And I think when it comes to learning, this is a very important habit to have, to enjoy being challenged and to actually seek the challenges, knowing that you will fail over and over again. And as we like to say at Code, learning is productive failing. So failing is not enough. You need to understand why you failed, learn from it, and then do better next time. So a growth mindset is another key component of what we think of as a digital pioneer. The next thing is something that's really hard to learn, let alone teach, and that's empathy. And empathy, not just towards others, but also towards yourself. I've asked Fabian as a philosopher about whether he thinks that the concept of empathy necessarily also includes yourself, or whether it's only towards others. I'm still waiting for a conclusive answer, but so it's empathy and kind of self-empathy, self-awareness that needs to be part of that. And it relates a bit to curiosity, but it not just means that you have to, or that you're interested in other people, but also that you can see the world through their eyes, that you can understand what it feels like to be in their position. And this, of course, it makes you a nice person to be around and to work with, but it does much more than that. If you want to, for example, create products that solve other people's problems, so they actually pay money to have these products, you want to be able to understand their problems and really understand their problems and understand how it feels like to have that problem from their perspective. So empathy also helps you become a better product manager, a better designer, a better software engineer, and of course, just a nice person to be around and work with. And then there's entrepreneurial spirit. And it is important to emphasize that this does not mean that we want you to found startups. Founding a startup is just one way of expressing your entrepreneurial spirit. The entrepreneurial spirit rather describes a person that sees themselves as someone who can make a difference and who wants to make a difference wherever they are. This can be in your social life, in your personal life, this can be in your professional life. You can do this as an entrepreneur, of course. You can do this, but also as an employee in a company. It doesn't really matter what it is that you do. It's rather part of a mindset, how you see yourself. And what code can provide is for you a chance to experience yourself as someone who can make a difference in the projects that you do, in a protected environment, if you will. Because failing at code, failing with a project as part of your studies doesn't hurt as much as it might if you're doing this in the real world outside of code. So I encourage you to test your entrepreneurial spirit, to give yourself a chance to experience yourself as someone who can make a difference. Because that's also built into the entrepreneurial spirit is the confidence that comes along with having experienced yourself as someone who makes a difference. Because that's usually not something that's happening in educational contexts. Usually you don't make a difference because everything is predefined, everything is set. You're just kind of playing a game that someone else designed. But if whether you play or not, or whether you or the person next to you is playing, it doesn't make a difference. It's always the same game. At Code, it's different because it's going to be your projects, it's your ideas, and you can experience yourself as someone who makes a difference. Build that confidence, build that muscle, if you will, that later on lets you take on bigger challenges, and maybe see yourself as someone who can solve problems that nobody has solved before you. And that's what we try to express with this idea of entrepreneurial spirit. And then, last but not least, there's critical judgment. Or judgment might also be enough. We are all living in a world full of information, and we're constantly challenged to figure out what we believe in, what we think is true, what we think is false, understand how these information should influence our mindset, our perspective on the world, our understanding of the world. And it is crucially important that you are able to come to a conclusion, to gather all the information that are out there, and then develop a certain perspective on topics, while at the same time knowing that you will never find the truth. I shared this quote with you yesterday briefly. Cherish those who seek the truth, but beware of those who find it. Because with a scientific mindset, you will never find the truth. You know that you cannot ever find the truth. But that doesn't mean you should stop seeking it. And that means you will always, with this critical judgment in mind, you will always try to understand the world, knowing that you will never definitely understand it. And once you think you have, this should kind of raise the alarm, because then you're fooling yourself, which is easy, as Richard Feynman says. So critical judgment, always seeking new knowledge, always trying to understand the world while knowing that you never will, and that tomorrow some new information could change the way you see the world and you think you've understood it. That is, in a nutshell, what we call the pioneer's mindset. And I really believe that it is at least as important, maybe even more important, than all the things you will be learning in interaction design, in software engineering, and in product management. Because if you would have that mindset, you can learn anything, and you don't need a university for that. You're prepared for any kind of challenge that the future will hold for you. And that's why I think it's really important to be aware of these things and challenge yourself and try to understand yourself, know yourself when it comes to these characteristics. And I think code is a great place to experience these things, to test your abilities, to test your mindset, and to grow. But as I said, we see in you the potential. So, of course, we also see in you things that are already there. You've completed a lot of things, you know a lot of things, you've experienced a lot of things, but the more important part is the potential. So latent qualities and abilities that may be developed. And that's, of course, up to you, whether or not you accomplish that. So far, it's the potential. We think you're able to do that. We trust in you that you are able to become a digital pioneer, to develop all these latent qualities and abilities. But it's a journey, and it's for you to travel. Thanks. And on this journey, there are two things that will happen to you all the time. One thing is the feeling that you don't belong here, that you don't know what other people are talking about, but you should. That you're not as competent as other people, that you're not as competent as you should be in a certain situation, and that's what we call the imposter syndrome. And yeah, research shows that imposter phenomenon or imposter syndrome is not uncommon for students when entering a new academic environment. So that's why I think it's a good timing to talk about this right now. Because some of you may feel exactly that. I'm not sure if I belong here. I'm not sure if I'm good enough. I'm not sure if I'm as good as other people, as experienced. I I don't know. I haven't started programming when I was 10 years old. I'm not an accomplished designer like other people might be. So just be aware it's a very common feeling. It's just part of being a human being, part of being empathetic and self-aware is of course being critical and judging yourself and comparing yourself. And maybe it helps to know that other people might feel the same. That everyone, I mean, if you read up on imposter syndrome, you will figure out there's celebrities out there, there's accomplished scientists out there, and if you had time to just read this here, I think this puts it very well. Even people with a Nobel Prize sometimes feel like an imposter in certain situations. But imposter syndrome is just one part of the journey. The other part is where your competence, and so that's just trying to understand, trying to picture this. Here's your competence developing over time, and here's your confidence, the belief in your competences, and this is how it should go, like straight up and always balanced. What actually happens is it's a journey, it's a curve, and the question is, where on this curve are you at any given time? So this would mean that your confidence is too high for your actual competence. And that's what science, what literature calls the illusory superiority phenomenon, or the Dunning-Kruger effect, named by the two people who discovered it, like in philosophy, in psychology, I'm sorry, Dunning and Kruger. One of them, I forget which one, was actually the student of the professor, and they approached this together. So be aware of that. You might be overconfident when it comes to certain things you know, certain things, certain skills you have. And it's usually at the beginning of the journey. So when you're here, you don't know anything, you're not competent, you're not able to do anything, and you're aware of that. So it's like you're a total beginner. That's fine. Once you start learning something, once you start understanding something, once you develop a skill, usually your confidence gets a boost. I see this with my kids all the time. My younger one just tried to learn how to ride a unicycle, and well, he can ride like 3-4 meters, but he feels like he's one of the best unicycle riders in the world. That's just how it feels to him with everything he's doing. Once you start, like you're so excited about your new skill, your new understanding, you've read up on a new theory, and you're excited about it, and your confidence gets a boost. So it might be that at a given time you're actually overconfident. And the problem is it prevents you from continuing to learn because you think you've already understood everything. So why continue learning? And then usually what happens is you continue to learn, and all of a sudden you start to understand how complex the topic actually is, how hard it actually is to be competent in a certain field. And that's where your confidence drops. And it may drop to a point where you're not confident enough for the actual competence that you have. And that's what you would call where you feel like, or you might feel like an imposter. You actually know things, you're actually capable of doing things, but you feel like you should be better, you should know more. And this was discovered in psychology by Clance and Imes. And they've described it at length. Interestingly, they think, or they say they found it mostly in accomplished women who have accomplished a lot professionally, and less in men. So, I don't know. Whatever gender you feel you are, or you identify with, I think doesn't matter here. I think we all have these in certain areas where we sometimes are overconfident with the things we know or are able to do, and sometimes feel like an imposter because we don't believe in our skills, abilities, or in our understanding of the world. So just be prepared. This is going to be part of your learning journey at Code. And again, know yourself, challenge yourself, always ask yourself, where am I on this journey? Am I overconfident? Am I not confident enough in my skills and abilities? Or is it just right? Because that's where we want you to end up. Of course, not in A, not in B, but in the end, in C. It's going to be part of your journey, and I hope you will enjoy this journey, nevertheless, and maybe understanding these phenomena helps you on your way to becoming a digital pioneer, someone who actually lives up to the potential that we see in you today. Because of course the journey is not at an end here. There's so much more to explore, and if you have the right mindset, then yeah, there's nothing that can stop you. And I think with that mindset, you are really well prepared for this future that is so hard to predict and so full of possibilities. Thank you. And that's for you if you want to read up on any of these. Do we have time for questions, or?
We would have time for like 2 quick questions. If you have any. Because if not, yeah, there, okay.
Hi, thank you for your speech. What I wanted to ask you is if you still sometimes feel as an imposter as a co-founder of Code here in your university. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, especially in education, it is hard to be confident because if we're honest, nobody actually knows how to measure success when it comes to learning. There are no hard indicators for that. So there's always room for doubt. I mean, we largely agreed that we measure success in learning by looking at grades of people and looking at how many people graduate in certain fields, but I don't believe that to be a truthful or a useful measure. And if you don't have that, there's always going to be room for doubt. So maybe 10, 15 years from now, if I can look at all your CVs and see how successful you all have become, I'd say, okay, that's actually worked out. But until that, of course, there's always room for doubt.
Yeah, side question, because people here continue mentioning good books. Is there kind of like a reading list, like a general reading list, like, hey, this is the beginning reading list, this is the next year reading list, like something where all of you guys join and maybe share a spreadsheet or something?
I actually can't answer that because we just discussed that on the Zoom chat. We will make a poll on Slack where we ask you to recommend the best books you've read, and then we'll make like a curated list throughout the next weeks to kind of suggest what you should definitely read. But I want to do that all together, like doing the Code Spirit. It's not Manuel telling us what books we should read. He can add some of his suggestions. But I'm also super curious to hear from you what books you would recommend. And I know that in your written application, you all had to recommend a book to your fellow students. So we should start from there, and then we can create that list together. And I'll actually keep that now, because we need to continue. Thank you so much, Manuel. There'll be plenty of events where Manuel will be around where you can ask him all the questions. But also talk about that with older students, with like the one from the older generations. And we also have the alumni breakfast on Thursday, where I think they can also talk a lot about the topics Manuel just mentioned. Yeah, Lauren's waving. Alumni breakfast. So the next session, we have the 2 speakers joining remotely. So it's going to be Joanna and Maya, and we'll talk about the buddy system. I'm super happy that we have that in place again. Basically, I think that was 2 years ago in the summer break. We asked all students, and then like there was a student general assembly, and we were like, okay, what should we actually put in place for students to like have a better like entry into code? And then the buddy system is one thing that kind of developed out of that. But yeah, they will talk a bit more about that. And I think we can. 5 seconds, yeah. Graham needs to fix the screen. Nice. That's probably the moment where I should have prepared jokes or something. But I didn't. Can I start? Yes, I can start talking. Yeah, Jana, Maya, can you start talking?
Level 1, level 2, and level 3. Briefly, with level, everybody gets level 1. And understand or anything that anything around code that might bother you, your body can help with it. We have a level 2. This is a person who can help you additionally with other things like living in Berlin or some bureaucracy stuff. And level 3 could be a person that can help you with everything you might need around and having more of like a chat or a friend around Berlin. So things that we would ask you to have in mind while having your buddies. Firstly, as I said, everybody gets it. Then don't be afraid to ask questions. I think it's always easier when you're not afraid to ask questions. Be mindful that your buddy is also a student, but it can be your go-to place for finding the right person who can answer your question. And we really hope that it can work out, or at least point you to somebody who has the answer. Another thing we want to point out, as you can see in the presentation, is that you can always let us know if things don't work out. It happens. We are always like, later on you'll see the team. You already know me from most of you from your admission days. You'll see Maya now. We also have Luca, Elena, Omar, and Brendan. So you can always reach any of us. We're going to try to help with this. And the last thing we just want to say is be nice with your buddy, have fun. You can always ask them how their exams are going. I guess they could at some point they could use another person to share about their troubles. So you could just treat them as a person who we kind of match with, and we tell you this is a person that you have similar interests with. Maybe you can try to find them out. So we have prepared some challenge for you, and I'm going to introduce Maya. I'm sorry, Maya. I'm not going to take over.
So we got to our challenge. We did for this onboarding day a challenge, and we decided that the challenge would be to create a photo collage. We gave also an option of a video collage. I don't know, like TikTok, the videos where they're doing the collages there with your buddy. So we just want you to show us, like, with your buddy, your interest, hobbies, or anything else that you find. You don't need anything else, not super technical. If you are both of you remote, this is also fine. We don't ask to be physically present to do this collage. Okay, the submission. So we open a channel on Slack, which you can find. It's called Temporary OBD Challenge. There you will post your photo or video of your collage. And the deadline of submitting will be this end of this week, which is the 27th of August. And now the next part is the voting. So the voting will happen in the same channel. The deadline of the voting will be Wednesday, 1st of September. And please vote with the trophy emoji that we also put here for the team of buddy that you think that is worth winning. So we will choose who won by the votes of the trophies. And please, we kindly ask not to vote on your own team. And what is the prize? We have a prize. So we will announce the prize, who won in the 2nd of September. The prize is the couple of buddy that won is getting a €100 budget for lunch, dinner. For all of that, the winner, we will announce it. We will privately talk to you. We also ask that who won, if you're a buddy of 2, please ask another group of team to join to you. So you will be maximum 5 people. And if you are a team of buddies of 5 in total with the core student buddy, then you don't need to add any more team because this is the maximum. I know probably you don't know who is else with if your current core student have any more buddies, but this is something you can also discuss about. This is a choice of you two of what you want to do. And I think if I had something else, I'm not sure. So we had like some challenge tips for you. We say, but like, just include the picture together. It doesn't matter how. You don't need to be a Photoshop master or any amazing, great editor in this world. I mean, we just talk about imposter syndrome, so it's quite working well. It's not important here. It's just about having the fun, creating something together, and then can go having some food together. That's it.
Yeah. And lastly, maybe if you just want to see our faces around, these are the people that create the program. We really hope it was not overwhelming. This was kind of like a lot of information, but really hope you do have fun. And I'm going to start sharing our screen. So yeah, do you have any questions? Maybe just to ask about it. Because if not,
Yes, question. You can unmute yourself, Fatima, so you can hear.
Hi, everyone.
Hey.
I just want to ask if that challenge should be like just over like something digital, or just like I can do art without any digital thing.
We said
Like,
also
no.
drawing, doing a drawing is also possible. It's really open of how you want to showcase you and your body.
Okay, like I can draw.
Yeah.
Cool. That's it.
How could you please explain again how or where we find out our body on Notion? Okay, Luca posted the link to the Notion page. You can see there your bodies in our Notion page of the student body program. It's under the code wiki and student body program. And
yeah, but I'm not
also the challenge is written there again in the page.
Yeah, I'm not that very familiar with Notion yet, but I'm just like gonna try to figure it out.
You should have your access like Notion. I'm pretty sure you should have received them. When you click on the page, it's just like our wiki, and we store our information there. So it's basically like reading there, go through the page, and I think you'll figure it out. If you have any issues, please ask us in the Slack channel. I believe it should be either on private or not. We are happy to address everything there.
I do have the access. Actually, I have.
Happening.
We lost you, Fatma, but you can, if you come back.
I think it's yeah, okay. Now you can unmute yourself again. It was just the window of hidden go. Yeah, I think we will also post on Slack again the challenge in the channel and also in community probably. So also your buddies will hear about.
Well, thank you so much, Joanna and Maya, for joining us. I think it's a good idea to post everything on Slack again, and then if there are any questions, we just answer them there. And then you have time until Friday to come up with something, and then we'll do the voting next week. That's exciting. So actually, we're going to wrap up the morning now. You have a long lunch break now until 2, so you can either cook something or like you can all be in Berlin now. You have 2 hours. Make sure that you be back like 10 to 2. And then you also need to all join remotely again like this morning. So just find a spot on campus where you can join. And then Shirozi made a post in the Slack channel figuring out what movie we want to watch together tonight. So you can vote on different movies that we could watch. Please do that. Check Slack regularly. Either way, that's a good last thing to say. Yeah. So see you at 2.
gathered round my feet, possessions unlessoned to carry with me, heavy and soothing like a gentle symphony. I rest my head right back up on my seat. It's hard and cold though. The best thing for me, this train is moving, but my heart is stationary. Seasons change, shining, it won't be the same. I'm hoping I won't stay the same. Reason is strange, why we always play these games. I left it with you, a note that was discreet. I made sure I put it upon the cellar door. It's hanging, hoping, will you read it while I weep? Last time, it flickers through me, so vivid, it rushes from my head down to my feet. We're laughing, joking through a dark
Test.
Just wanna take all of this hate. It's hard to take all of this hate. This hate. Those moving feet, they made us stop. Be careful with me. Be careful with. Jump with me. I should have heard your feet. So it's only. So it's on. I should have heard your needs. So it's on. So it's on. So it's on. We've thrown apart these pieces. We've grown apart these pieces. Songs of a home. Tell me love. Tell me love. You're my favorite, you're my favorite, but we're phasing, but we're phasing. You're my favorite, you're my favorite, but we're phasing, but we're phasing. You're my favorite, you're my favorite, but we're phasing, but we're phasing. You're my favorite, you're my favorite, you're my. Is there something to break about? Is this just broke about? Is there nothing to shake this heart? Is this just a break apart from us? Should have heard your feet shake on me. Should have heard your feet shake on me.
Lying on the ground, feeling like a dying man.